For Wall Street Media, I'm Mike, I'm here with Doug, and we'll help you make money in the stock market with information you can't find anywhere else.
Hey, good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very good weekend. How was yours?
Oh, very good. Exciting.
Yeah.
Productive, right?
What's happening over the weekend? What did I miss in the market?
Well, I'll tell you, one thing that you did miss is the invention of a new nation, or a new group of people, which you currently live in. It's called the AmeriCAN'Ts, right? They used to be called the AmeriCANs, but now they're called the AmeriCAN'Ts. I watched 60 Minutes last night.
Like cannot?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. I was thinking of a different vowel, but I thought that would make us an entirely differently rated program.
Nice.
I was watching 60 Minutes last night, and they had all the AmeriCAN'Ts on, whining and literally crying, because they all worked for a company called Airborne Express, which was taken over by a German company entirely legally within the laws of the world, the universe, the Securities Exchange Commission, and everyone else. And then they proceeded to fail, right? And they were losing $6 million a day. DHL's a German company. And so they decided to close down their operations, right? $6 million a day is bad, right?
So is that more or less a write-down then?
Well, it's a write-down, and it is a business failure, but the AmeriCAN'Ts were all on television last night whining and crying, and they're all going to starve, and they're buying peanut butter. So I don't know how much peanut butter you would buy so that you didn't, it would feed you for the rest of your life. But they were all crying and blaming the Germans, and they want to sue the Germans for ruining this great American company. And the final part was they were all on talking about how they want DHL to give them this multi-million, tens of millions of dollars worth of ground and factories because it failed.
To start up Airborne Express all over again?
No, just to start up something so that they all had their hands out. AmeriCANs, we used to do like this and salute, but AmeriCANs, you salute like this. It's with your hands out. It was sickening to me. It was really, really sickening to me, right? And I thought, where do these people get off, right, that they're blaming a company that took them over and then they were failing. They failed, right? And there was no, we could have done better, we could have been more productive, or we could have delivered better, or business went against us, whatever the case might be, right? They were out of favor. We saw DHL quite a bit and used to talk about it quite a bit.
I like DHL still, compared to the other providers.
Yeah, well, you're going to like them less because they're not going to be here in the U.S. But in any event, they're business. And they're not a socialist enterprise, right? And all the AmeriCAN'Ts had their hands out and were crying. And I thought, what I always did when things got tough, man, is I worked more, and I didn't always take jobs that I liked, and I didn't always do things that I liked, right? And I didn't do them the hours that I liked.
It's all about the management, right? If the management is not behind the people, then the people are not going to do what they're supposed to do. I
don't know that enough about it. All I know is that it made me very ashamed, right, to see all of these people blaming this company. And then not only, I can understand if you worked for them for a long time and you lost your job, but do you know what? They're business. It's not supposed to be like a socialist enterprise, right? And they were losing $6 million a day. You closed down.
Right.
If we were losing $6 million a day, we wouldn't finish this show.
Well, the auto industry does it all the time.
I know. I saw the auto industry has their hands up. I saw in California some more AmeriCAN'Ts. They're bailing out car dealers in this one town. Car dealers, not the manufacturers, the car dealer.
Nice.
They're giving them taxpayer money, right? Here's $400,000 to stay afloat. And I thought, it reminded me of a great quote, which I saw on Twitter this morning, right, from a guy that I follow, Good American. He is not an AmeriCAN. And it was Margaret Thatcher's quote. And it was, the problem with socialism is that sooner or later you run out of other people's money.
Good point.
Yeah, you can't bail everybody out, right? And these are awful times, man. And you're supposed to be AmeriCANs. And it stinks. And it's awful times everywhere for everybody. But what you've got to do is not this. Don't have your hand out. Put your resume out. Get to work. Work harder. Don't be blaming other people for your predicament and crying and then putting your hand out.
Well, that's the easy thing for most people, right?
Yeah, it is. But it was sickening to me, right? It was really, really disturbing. I thought, oh my God, man, this isn't my country. These are not my people. I hope nobody like ties me into them. You know, it stinks. These are very difficult, awful times. But the solution isn't to blame someone else for the problem and put your hand out. The solution is to suck it up and do things that you don't want to do and that you don't like to do. And you know what? If you work, I guarantee you, here's the Doug Job Program. I guarantee you that if you work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, you won't starve. I guarantee it.
That's not really a generation problem, right? Because I see old people blaming others, and it's
well,
not
that
really
was the
a
whole
young
problem,
thing.
Mike, and that's what made me so sad and disturbed. Is that I would have liked to have said, "Oh, it's these young kids of today," and it wasn't. It was people that were my age and between me and you, right?
Also older?
Well, I didn't see anyone actually older than me. Most people older than me are dead. But
Okay, good
I just
point.
wanted to say that before you did. But boy, it made me. There were people in their 30s and 40s, right? That were whining and crying, and they were the AmeriCAN'Ts doing the AmeriCAN'Ts salute with their hands out, right? I mean, who says your business failed, so you should give us this factory and this ground, right? I mean, what kind of thinking is that?
It's not only tougher for the for the employees, but also for the employers, because it's harder to find people that are actually willing to work at this point.
Well, you know how hard it's been for us for 10 years.
Right.
It's been ridiculously hard. 20 years ago, it was easy to find somebody that said, like, wow, this is great. I'm going to come in and work, and you're going to pay me, right? And if you grow, I'm going to grow. We're going to earn more. And it's never been that way for 10 years in New York, right? But, yeah, a very good point by you. These are people in their 30s and 40s, right? And I thought, it sucks, right? But somebody's making Big Macs today, and I guarantee you, if you make Big Macs for 8 hours and you get a paper route,
you get some sort of payment.
You'll get something, and you won't starve. And those jobs are out there.
But it's harder than to say, oh, this is not my fault, give me money.
Well, and give me the park and bail out my car dealership. And, and it was awful, right? Because it is a spiral effect, right? They said the local small businesses are all going to close because they relied on these people, right? But it was the same thing, and it reminded me of the same thing of where I grew up in Pennsylvania with all the steel mill workers, right? And everybody had a chance for a good life, and instead of being grateful for that job and that chance for the good life that kept them in a nice, tidy home that they owned and got them a new car every 2 or 3 years and sent them to Florida on vacations, what they did is they all went and bought Japanese cars that weren't made with American steel. And I remember watching that as a little boy and thinking, boy, you guys are some ungrateful bastards. And now, if you went through those same towns that used to be prosperous middle-class towns, right, all of the guys who were bragging about how they didn't do any work for that day and how they stole tools from the steel mill and how they drove their Japanese cars there to work, right, which I was outraged, and I was probably 8 or 10 years old. Right?
Yeah, except the steel mill closed because it didn't have any money. But, all these other companies, they're getting bailed out by the government, so they might not.
But that's not going to
close.
last very long. It's not. Margaret Thatcher was right. Margaret Thatcher was one of the greatest leaders in the world, and next to Ronald Reagan, and she was right. It doesn't work that long. You can't. Detroit, they had a chance to straighten out the auto manufacturers and force them to declare bankruptcy and reorganize at reasonable contracts. Right? I mean, it sickened me to think 4,000 AmeriCAN'Ts were auto workers, and because of these union deals, got up and went to a factory that produced absolutely nothing, 4,000 of them every day for 2 years. Right? Insanity. Insanity.
I wonder what they're doing there. They're having a party or...
Just go and sit and read the paper. They didn't do anything. For years, it wasn't like, oh, we had 2 bad days, we cut production. Years. And somehow the AmeriCAN'Ts thought that was okay. And now, do you know what? They had a chance to straighten it out. And keeping that kind of failed thinking going, the magical thinking that it's all going to work out, right, isn't going to pan out.
Right. Definitely not in the long run.
Nope.
Should we go into management changes?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, we have some management changes provided by Liberum Research. Citizen Republic Bancorp Inc., CRBC is the ticker, announced the retirement of William Hartman as the bank's president and chief executive officer, effective January 31st, 2009. The board, at its regularly scheduled meeting, named Kathleen Nash, who most recently served as Citizens Republic's Executive Vice President and Head of Regional Banking, to replace Mr. Hartman as President and Chief Executive Officer. Torriado...
They were just sorry, Mike. They were just downgraded this morning by Keith Broyat.
Bad timing.
Yeah. And their dividend is currently paying a 74.8% yield, which I don't expect to hold up.
Great. Torriado Resources Corporation, TRGL, and Nains Balcony Partners, LP. One of the largest stockholders announced that they have entered into a settlement agreement pursuant to which the company appointed 3 new members to Torriado's board of directors. Nigel Lovett resigned as Chief Executive Officer, President and Director of the company, and John McLaughlin resigned as a non-executive chairman and a director. The company also appointed Craig McKenzie interim CEO effective immediately, while a search for a permanent CEO is completed.
Well, they're down in the $2 a share range, and their EPS is minus $4 a share range. So I guess if you're losing double your share price, right, the horizon isn't looking wonderful. Something that looked a little wonderful for me this morning was DXO. I've been telling you I think oil was too cheap, right? And I added to it last week. I put my money where my mouth is. And I just sold a tenth of what I own off this morning. It was up quite a bit. It's up about 8% for the day.
Perfect.
You know, and I don't buy that people can't afford or can't afford to pay for oil. Mm-hmm. A year ago, it was $4.
Right, and people were still driving around.
And everybody was on every news program in the country saying that they had to drive, they had to do this, they had to do that.
Right.
That's not happening now? It's happening.
Okay, that's all we have. Do you have anything to add? Or?
I don't. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you. We're here every day at Wall Street Media. You can find us directly at wsmco.com. Thanks.